Performance has been a huge issue since 4.0 was released, and the devs have a full dev diary discussing what impacts it, planned fixes, and how they test. We've also got patch notes coming for the next update with a lot of bug fixes, stability, and balance changes. Let's first get into the internal performance investigations, as I know many people have been talking about this. Performance remains the highest priority of the internal Stellaris team. A portion of the team will be fixing bugs, balance, and stability issues, especially multiplayer stability, which is good because 4.1 has come with a lot more desyncs. But a dedicated sub-team from custodians exists that is exclusively focusing on performance. Another really good thing is performance since 4.0 has not been great, and it's the performance update too. Today I'm going to go over some of the internal investigations and leads. It's our goal to make steady progress on performance, but this is going to be a long haul and won't be a magic patch that fixes everything. There's several angles to pursue, however. How modifiers are applied, fleet counts, UI impacts, and economic balance are four major targets under investigation. So before I read any of this, for me, as the game's gone on, the amount of resources we can achieve has skyrocketed. In 1.0, obviously there was only minerals really and energy, but a full mineral deposit was insane. Now you have like thousands of minerals being produced, so everything's growing, which is not necessarily bad, but the game compared to 1.0, you can get way more resources, which means more ships, more pops, more everything. So yeah, economic and fleet for me are probably the biggest issue, which is probably the biggest issues for the lag. While investigating some 4.0 saves from the bug report forum, I noticed an unusually large number of ships in the late game saves, over 24,000 ships, and had the analytics team dig up some information. I posted this on our forums earlier this week, which compares the average number of ships in all default empires across a month, each of 3.14 and 4.0 games. So as you can see, in 3.14, we were getting quite a few ships, but nowhere near as this 4.0, almost double in 4.0, because the amount of pops you can get, the power creep, you can just spam ships, and I guess the AI likes spamming ships more in 4.0 as well, and ships definitely cause a lot of lag. The more powerful economies of 4.0 are causing us to reach previously endgame counts of ships 100 years earlier. Some less rigorous checks of saves from our overnights and those provided in the bug report forum also indicate that the 4.0 AI is much better at filling out their naval capacity and expanding it, but not nearly to the degree that players are. The AI is not as adept at stacking non-linear bonuses the way you guys are, so even if it's several times as effective as it used to be, if you're 10 times as strong, it feels weaker overall. So yeah, well, like I said, the AI are better at building ships in 4.0, which is good, I guess, because we want the AI to try and match you, but it's also lagging the game. In my next investigation, I took a huge Grand Admiral game 200 years into the game and ran a series of tests, exploring how the number of ships in the galaxy affected the save. During these trials, I also found that there was a substantial difference based on what the camera was looking at. Viewing Havenstar, the capital system of one of the largest empires, generally performed worse than viewing the entire galaxy map as an observer. And that itself was worse than staring at nothingness in an exploded Azalash. So yeah, but a lot of times when we're playing multiplayer games, or in my member-only series, I have to stare at the galaxy map instead of watching the ships, because the ships cause so much lag. Because if there's thousands of ships in a system, it's trying to process them all, but when it's not, for some reason it doesn't. I don't actually know why. We have another set of tables here. So essentially, with no ships removed, we can see, I think this is in seconds. 1 year took 209 seconds in Havenstar. Then when we just went to Galaxy Map, it performed 34% better, and then an exploded system, 38% better. Now, as ships are removed, we see a clear increase across the board in performance. With all ships removed, the game runs 120 times better when in Havenstar, and like 50% better in the Galaxy and Azalash, which is a lot. So these results basically tell me, yes, ships cause lag. This was in the 4.1 free release build from 2400 to 2401. Oh, and then there's a nice graph here. As you can see, performance does get better, but it's way more noticeable when you're viewing the ships than if you're in a galaxy, but still there's an increase in performance. We're also seeing 4.1 performance being marginally better than 3.14 until a bit after 2300, after which the two suddenly diverge. Currently in the process of generating more saves and analysing the data to get a better understanding of what exactly is happening here. So here you can see in red is the 3.1 saves and 4.1 saves. Now, they're pretty much the same, and then obviously they diverge around 2300, which is quite weird. I have not a clue why that would happen, but really we should be seeing 4.1 below 3.14 in the early game too. If 4.0 was meant to be the patch to fix performance, but it's never performing getting better, which is not great. These steps gives us several directions to pursue. Reducing the number of ships in the game through a combination of economic balancing and mechanical changes look like it has some promise, but we also clearly have client-side improvements to investigate. We have another graph here with 4.0.23 in blue versus 4.1 red in micro tick times at various dates throughout the game. I don't know what a micro tick is, but 4.1's lower, which I think is good. I'm not actually sure. 4.1's release day announcement was later than normal because we were concerned about whether 4.1 would harm performance. This was one of the performance graphs that contributed to the final approval for release. I'll now turn this over to Gosia to discuss the methodology and process. Gosia would like to thank you guys for the bug reports, as it helps them a lot. They're thinking about how to bite this topic in the dev diary, and they think it would be best to start from scratch. Do they even test it? Because a lot of people say they don't even test the releases. Do they even care? And what's the process? The answer to all these questions is yes. Performance has had our attention even before 4.0 was released. Since then, we've been continually improving our workflows and adapting the methodology to make every pop in the galaxy happy. At Paradox, we have machines ranging from low spec to high spec that we use to track performance 24/7. Both low and mid spec machines have older generations of CPUs and GPUs, including specifics like a lower amount of RAM. This is to ensure we monitor how the game behaves on different desktops, investigate differences and issues in the performance, which lastly can result in fixes we all want. Each week, our QA team runs performance sessions, rotating the responsibility among ourselves. Once the results are in, we review them with our game design and programming colleagues to ensure a well-rounded evaluation and the best outcome. Let me dive into some details. This could be particularly interesting for those of you who are curious and like experimented with performance testing yourself. Regarding the performance run, at first we need to make sure this launching argument is set. So in the properties of the game, you can put launching options, and this does load random seed. This keeps the random seed, all the random events in the galaxy, the same on the save you made. Oh, that's interesting. I did not know that existed. Why is this important? Because our game is so complex with so many different systems, different crises or situations might impact the performance and as a natural consequence invalidate the testing results. War in Heaven may not distress the game as heavily as Satana, for example, and vice versa. That's why having the same saves and executing the comparisons between versions is crucial. Of course, sometimes due to the new content we release, it is not possible. Only then we allow ourselves to run different saves, but trying to make the settings and save as identical as possible. Keeping the same random seed will significantly reduce the divergence of the two galaxies. We have seeds in the game. I wish we could actually enter these without having to do the console commands or launching arguments, because you can make custom galaxies that everyone could play the same seeds. That would be very cool. Make this a base feature, please. From there, the only debug command that should ever be used is human AI and nothing else. Any other command may falsify the results, i.e. fast forward, might generate more issues that we are not aware of. The more natural, the better. Once the performance machines are done, we gather the necessary files generated by the game and using a special tool, generate graphs as presented below. So we can see 4.017 in blue and 4.022 in red, which they're pretty similar. For example, here you can see that both version 4.0.17 and 4.0.22 run quite similarly, which means that we neither introduce new entries nor improve. 1 year and 30-year commands. Once we have graphs, regardless of the results, improved or not, we load the save and do in-game checks. One of them that is well known to you all is 1 year debug command that checks how fast the game can get through X years. I didn't even know that existed until now, to be honest. We run 30 years either from the last save made or starting a completely new game and running in parallel on different PCs with different versions of the game. Think 2200 to 2230, compare, then again 2230 to 2260. Compare until, if time allows, the end game. This type of test has exposed in a couple of runs that 4.1 generally is faster in the early game, but slows down heavily around mid-game. It is essential to highlight here that it matters of where you are looking. If it's a system or galaxy view, if you run it only in the system view filled with cosmic storms or ships, the game will run slower, which yeah, we've seen, because I guess it's trying to generate it on screen for you, like doing the graphics as well as the maths of it. Script profile, one of the most important checks, often exposing the biggest offenders of our performance. Shows all the checks that we do in the script and code. I have another image here which shows how long each script takes, which is very interesting. Wow, I did not know they could see this. So event bio 755 immediate effect is taking 3,583 milliseconds, and then you can break this down like planet and none. I don't know what none is. It's taken 28 and 36. The values above show the total time, the number of hits, checks, and the average time to perform one check. As presented in the screenshot, the red square shows that the event bio 755 has a very high total time value, with 1,845 hits on a monthly tick. The average is also high if you look very closely. One could suspect that biogenesis is causing the distress and the aforementioned event, but if you expand bio 0.755, you'll see that in fact the culprit is update modifiers. Modifier threading, and in many others, by the way. This check is the most extensive, and sometimes we sit there for hours dwelling on the results and observations. Overnight debug command. Overnight is not commonly used for performance tests, as it might easily generate wrong results. But what's good about overnight is its speed and the amount of saves it generates. Essentially, we can quickly get to 2,500 and from there check save made every 50 years to see what is happening in the galaxy. It's a good way of testing performance issues if we notice that there is game-breaking points in the graph. Currently no issues. Update modifiers check that happens every month heavily deteriorates performance and causes the game to stutter on the monthly tick. Yeah, so that's a big issue in late game. I do have a massive late game save, so I feel like I'm well versed in the lag here. This was really bad in like 4.17, maybe previous. There was an update in 4.0.x somewhere that fixed it, that let me continue my members only series, because it literally would freeze for like 7 seconds every single month. So things are improving, just it's not where we want it to be. So hopefully they can reduce that. The pop groups often do not merge when they are less than 100 pops. So they're essentially, that means if you have 99 pops, they're creating 99 groups instead of if you have like 10,000 pops, they're all in one group, so it's saving lag, but 99 different groups is causing more lag. The tick rate and performance drastically slows down during the mid game, which might be related to the above. Guess mid game there's more, like the pop growth gets to a point where there's lots of 99 groups, maybe? Or 0 to 99 anyway, or 1 to 99. AI tends to not merge fleets. Yeah, so merging fleets can reduce it. I have seen also performance slightly improve with the bigger fleet size. Changes we're exploring. Now, before I read this, I want to guess/suggest things. Reduce modifiers. Like, we don't need this many resources. Increase ship cost and increase their power, maybe, or just lower all the power. Just, we need to slow down the power creep, damn it. Arc furnaces give us so much stuff without working pops. You can just get so many resources need to slow down and reduce ship count and make them more powerful and more expensive or something like that. I don't know. Back to Eldrin. So the changes they're exploring, modifiers. As Gosia mentioned, the custodians on the performance team are currently rewriting how modifiers are calculated and improving their threading. So that's to the big bio stuff. We consider this a potentially dangerous change, oh gosh, but it should have some positive but hardware dependent impact with greater impact on the late game. So basically, if you have lots of cores, this change will be good, but multi-threading is not easy. It's tough. As someone who's done a computer science degree, it's painful because you have to wait for different things too, so you can't always just say multi-thread. It's not the huge change, but if you can code your game to do it, it can have massive benefits to multi-core systems, which most are, but it depends how many cores they use. Ship counts. Yep. One of the common suggestions we see is reducing the number of ships and fleets while increasing their relative power. Hello. A mod was posted last week. Oh, they're shouting out mods. Based compact armadas. Let's see what this mod does. It claims to do better performance. Every ship is 10 times stronger and 10 times more costly. Exactly what I was saying. This causes less lag because there's less simulations going on. Yeah, that's basically what it does. Multiplying ship costs and power by 10. Yeah, I should have just read. This is somewhat similar in nature to one of my internal design experiments, though my variant is based partially on how Hearts of Iron handles advanced vehicle design. I don't know how that works. Oh, they're going to tell us. In Hearts of Iron, as you progress through the technology tree, you unlock progressively more advanced vehicles. In the case of planes, for instance, you'll go from propeller-based interwar airframes with pretty mediocre stats up through basic, improved, advanced and modern airframes. Experiment with this includes advanced variants of the basic hull types where you use more naval capacity than their base variants, but not command limit. Okay, so hull, okay, we've never been able to customize hull. Usually you just have to build bigger ship for more hulls. So they're saying essentially we'll have basic corvette hull and we can build into advanced corvette hulls which cost more, also increase naval cap, but don't increase command limit so you can keep them in the fleet. I really like that change if they do it. And they're more upkeep. They're significantly more powerful and have inherent shield and armor hardening. Oh, the bypass meta might die here. In our current experiment, the MK3 hulls were given an additional auxiliary slot on the stern ship section. Okay, so essentially we're not increasing the power of the weapons, but we're increasing the health by doing this. And you get an extra A slot. This change will reduce mid and end game ship counts by approximately 25%. Some of the benefits expected from that. The inherent hardening and change in the relevant value of ships also had an interesting effect on making bypass weapons less suppressive. I should just read instead of guessing. But yeah, rip bypass. This could be good to mix it up. I'm gonna have to make another ship design video. The next iteration of this experiment would be more extreme and increase the difference between the tiers. I quite like the effect it has on making individual ships and fleets more important. I do like that too, because that's late game, you just spam ships as many as you can. It also make commanders more important and more impactful. I would rather less ships that are more powerful. to be quite honest. We've also investigated a system where enough of a specific type of ship would group together into a squadron. Oh my gosh, that would be huge. That would also do a lot. Never mind, but our early experiments didn't prove especially promising. This might get revived again later if the ship counts remain high, or if there are other combat changes planned. So the theory is that every ship has to simulate everything. So say you have one battleship hangar, it's spitting out hangars and stuff, it's moving them around, it's doing the calculations for that ship. But if you combine one ship into a squadron that just has a visual of like 6 battleships, but really it's acting as one, you should simulate it better. Because a fleet, although they move kind of as a group, they're still being individuals based on their combat computers and stuff. But I do like the idea of improving hull, makes it interesting. Economic and modifier balance. The biggest design side task is to analyze and curb some of the non-linear growth in the post 4.0 economy. While we want planet design and the decisions you make to remain rewarding, currently there are some elements that create excessive positive feedback loops. What are we linking to here? The population growth is 1 million per month. Oh dear. How did they do this? Oh, psionics. Yeah. You just keep adding things that reduce upkeep and per pops, and yeah, that's a bit insane. Like the technology open beta, we need to bring some things back to a proper baseline. Open betas. I expect that any of these will need to go through an open beta process with the intention of reducing risk, carrying feedback, and helping refine things. I do like the open betas. They do help. I think these changes will be great. We just need to really slow down the economy. It's one of the big things. You can get such a powerful economy so early, even if you just play the UNE. Like, it's pretty mental. Now, another big thing. Multiplayer stabilities and out of syncs. We are aware that there are stability issues with multiplayer and need your help to fix them. Reproducing desyncs in multiplayer is much harder than finding regular bugs and fixing them, as there are many different ways and causes the games can desync. Often one desync hides under another, so even if the patch notes say we fixed one, it can often still remain an issue in a different form. Saves that reliably desync 100% of the time are pure gold from our perspective, so if you have one of those, send them to them. How does Stellaris multiplayer actually work? Stellaris uses lockstep multiplayer. Essentially, a day is split up into 10 turns, and for each turn, the client sends the instructions, commands, the player execute on their computer to the host. A list of the relevant values for each command, such as country resources, ship count, etc., to the host. The host then verifies the validity and executes that player's instructions on the galaxy and generates its own list of values and then compares the two lists. If everything goes as intended and all the instructions are passed to the host, the values will be the same and the game will then continue to the next tick. If there is a mismatch between the two lists of values, the game declares a desync and generates an out of sync report that is saved locally on the client and host computers. Why don't you fix the desyncs? We do actively fix the desyncs with just about every version. Unfortunately, we also sometimes introduce new desyncs that look the same as the old desyncs, or uncover new desyncs that were hiding under the old desyncs. Desync is identified by a set of names, like random count, num pot groups, or economy overload. This is triggering me seeing those, that tell which part of the game state was misaligned. You can think about the desync name as the symptoms. How do you fix desyncs? When we get a bug report that has the two out of sync reports, host and desync client, our devs will compare the out of sync ports and find the difference between them. They will then trace back through the code and find what didn't synchronize between the host and client. Sometimes this is a relatively easy fix, and other times just finding the culprit can take days. I've experienced a desync. How do I report it? Report your desync on the bug report forums. In your bug report, please include an out of sync report from the host and a client that desync. If you have an autosave from the month before the desync, this will also help, since sometimes these autosaves will desync every time, which helps us immensely when trying to reproduce desyncs on our end, as well as helps testing to be sure the desync is actually fixed. I do feel bad for the devs with multiplayer desyncs. They do seem insane, and they always happen every single patch because new things get added and it just dies. Now, I don't really know much about multiplayer games. Is there like a better multiplayer? Like, this is using lockstep multiplayer. Would it be worth changing it? Probably not, as we've seen with 4.0. But if you do desync, make sure to report it, and hopefully they can just get through them all and get the game more playable on multiplayer. Now we have some 4.14 open beta patch notes, which has a lot of fixes. We'll skim through some, but there's some improvements, like a Sol variant for Mine Wardens, active accords for Embryos now unlock silent components, AIs cannot take the Mine Warden origin. It's quite funny. Some balancing, Shroud Seals now reduce fire rate to psionic weapons, 2 for the Eater silent components that are buffed. Death Priests now only gain +3 unity per 100 jobs if a sizable percentage of your population sacrificed. I guess they were doing it no matter what. Resource consolidation blockers are now more severe. Wilderness Empires no longer will be offered the Tomb World adaptation, since they can only end up on Tomb Worlds in very rare scenarios. It's mostly a dead tech. Civilian ships now get psionic shields. Gestalt Empires can now research psionic cloaking devices if you have both Shadows of the Shroud and Fizz contact. Aura of Whispers now impacts max cloaking strength. Secondary districts on initial machine world for resource consolidation now have lower cost and upkeep before the world's finished. Prototype machinery blocker on the initial machine world for resource consolidation costs $2,500. A lot of resource consolidation changes. Shroud Touch regions now produce more Zero, so you no longer start with a deficit. Pierce the Shroud no longer removes rare deposits. Shroud Forge already now provides additional trait picks and points for the Shroud Forge pops, allowing them to be robo-modified without removing traits. Yeah, they were negative to start with. Fully embracing Shroud Forge now sets them to be your primary species. Oh, that's very nice. Reduce the effectiveness of composers of strand blockers and rework their bonuses. Boo. Decision to add Shrouded Vegetation now takes a year to enact and can only be enacted a limited number of times per colony. This is nerfing the Rangers Society food spam that I've seen. Fortune Tellers produce less raid. The Covenant power for end of cycle is now on a 10-year cooldown instead of being a one-time use for intensification. So when I was complaining constantly in my end of cycle video because I used that, which bypass seals, you can now wait 10 years to actually use it again, which is very nice. Time Out Civic now applies the following modifier: upheat from jobs minus 25%. They buff tank bound. Interesting. There's then a bunch of bug fixes, which I'm not going to read. There's so many. You can go check them out if you really want to. Some stability, some UI, but what's to come? Depending on how the timing and patches work out, next week should have the release of 4.1.5 if the open beta goes well. By Thursday, we may be going over some release notes for 4.1.6. If there are any major breakthroughs regarding anything in this dev diary, we'll also share more about them, but otherwise, we're going headphones on as we focus on these issues. I'll likely elaborate more on some of the questions I expect this dev diary will create. See you then, and thank you for playing Stellaris. It's moving in a good direction, just need more time and more performance stuff, please. Check out my Endbringer video here, and I'll see you in that one. Goodbye.